Okay, Planned Deception, Chapter 4. Quite a long chapter, this one, so I'm going to try and bang through it. Chapter 4, Working Out the Plan. Alice Bailey calmly noted the obsession of the occult initiate with the plan. Of it, she said, quote, "He no longer identifies himself with form or even with soul, but with the will of divinity and with the eternal plan and purpose. It becomes his plan and purpose. He knows no other." Close quotes. Many influential leaders in the New Age movement openly acknowledged their debt to these Bailey Tibetan teachings. Among those making such open identification are Robert Mueller, the Assistant Secretary General of the UN, David Spangler, the former co-director of the Findehorn Foundation, as well as being a board of directors member of the Kirkridge Centre, and Donald Keyes, former World Federalist representative to the UN, a founder of SANE and co-founder of Planetary Citizens, along with Norman Cousins and former UN Secretary General U Thant. Oliver L. Reiser, a now deceased former professor at the University of Pittsburgh and a signer of the 1933 Humanist Manifesto, did likewise. So did Robert L. Moore, the founder of the Sheraton hotel chain. It would literally take an encyclopedia to fully discuss the ways the plan, so beloved of the initiates, is being worked out. Obviously, this is not practical, especially in a fluid network such as the New Age movement. Therefore, a sampling of such means will be discussed in this chapter. Changing the cultural matrix. The thrust of the New Age dreams has not been to usurp this or that section or the culture of the world. Instead, their most favoured tactic has been what they call cultural integration. David Spangler is a key New Age leader. An article by him appeared in a New Age digest, the Utne Reader, in an article with the startling title, "The New Age Should Disappear." His definition of disappear was rather cultural integration, to make the New Age seem like normal everyday living and its opponents seem out of sync. This is kind of like getting into common purpose territory. Quote, "Through the efforts of many individuals and groups, the New Age is moving towards integration and invisibility. The transformation is taking place not through the bang of an apocalypse, but through the quieter and less dramatic growth of familiarity and an acceptance." Drip, drip. Close quotes. Spangler may be right for all the wrong reasons. He probably is not familiar with the Daniel prophecies. Yet what Spangler says is remarkably consistent with the way the Bible told us the Antichrist would be ushered in. "And in his estate shall stand up a vile person, to whom they shall not give the honour of the kingdom, but he shall come in peaceably and obtain the kingdom by flatteries." Daniel 11:32 King James. One form by which this flattery manifests is a widespread societal acceptance of a belief that we too are gods. This is the central theme of the New Age movement, of the many and varied Christian apostasies, and of paganism from time immemorial. One aspect of the plan was to help mankind recognize its inherent divinity, an obvious flattery. Coincidental? Few modern writers have approached the thoroughness of now deceased Cambridge scholar James Webb. Thoroughly investigating the occult, he wrote 3 scholarly but readable books about its influence on modern society: The Occult Underground, The Occult Establishment, and The Harmonious Circle. The last book deals with the Gurdjieffian-Ouspensky networks. Those particular New Age groups ominously call their efforts the work. Webb traced illuminated politics, and he found in investigating an earlier era, just as I found in looking at today's, that there was no shortage of research materials. Just as today there are demonstrable linkages between the various factions and organisations that some may not consider New Age, but rather conservationist in nature, so also did Webb find such to be true of earlier manifestations of occultism. Quote, "It should now be clear that the links between the youth movements, the conservationists, and the supporters of what their opponents call muck and mysticism have been both strong and consistent, and that the illuminated search for the organic society has taken place in England as well as abroad." Close quotes. That's from the Occult Underground. What Webb learned of the organic world view of the occultists of the earlier part of this century is equally true of the New Age movement and Christian apostasy of today. As Marilyn Ferguson puts it, quote, "The paradigm of the Aquarian conspiracy sees humankind embedded in nature." Close quotes. Webb, as an Englishman, mainly concerned himself with developments in that country and on the European continent. However, what he found true of Europe is equally true of developments in the United States today. It is startling to see very similar materials being published and used, such as those popular within our Christian colleges and seminaries today. One such example is the Calvin College Fellows Erdman Press book, Earthkeeping. And just as Webb noted it was not all accidental then, it is probably equally fair to say it is not all accidental now. If one carefully studies the literature currently popular in the New Age movement, unless he has an almost religious belief in coincidence, he will have a strange feeling that history and apostasy is repeating itself. Quote, "There would be some truth in representing the folk dancing, race improving elements of the underground as the pagan idealistic movement, while the supporters of guild socialism and social credit might be called the Christian wing. But there were those like Massingham and Montague Fordham who contrived to combine both aspects of the illuminated approach." Close quotes. She's quoting Marilyn Ferguson, The Aquarian Conspiracy. I'll try and might go through this at the end. "Although my detractors in and outside of the church continue to deny any possibility of occult influence in the church, it does exist, is a vital part of working out the plan." Sorry, this is her writing now. "And will continue in the culmination of the prophesied apostasy of 2 Thessalonians. Double impact advertising. Psychological conditioning of the masses also was to be a necessary part of implementing the plan. It's currently being done very openly. Even the familiar television commercials are no longer exempt. According to the Atlantic Monthly, in October 1984, in an article entitled Beyond Demographics, How Madison Avenue Knows Who You Are and What You Want by James Atlas, the Vowels project of SRI has grown rapidly in the past 6 years. It has gone, quote, from a modest in-house project at SRI to a $2 million operation, billing each of its 151 clients up to $300,000 a year for access to its data, close quotes. The author says that scarcely a week goes by without the unveiling of some new Vowels-inspired campaign. There are strong New Age theosophical biases among most SRI project members. The project itself reveals those biases. Much of the advertising of these clients is now directed to the inner directed, which the SRI Vows team claims to be the most rapidly growing segment of the American buying public. Project members include Arnold Mitchen and Duane Elgin, who wrote the Bantam New Age series book Voluntary Simplicity, based on a paper of theirs to SRI. It encouraged a lifestyle that was outwardly simple and inwardly rich. This book, which omitted few of the biases of the New Age movement, including Buddhism, enjoyed wide circulation in the business community. Based on the support and clients they picked up from the business community, they now use their $2 million a year budget to turn out papers with such weighty and prophetic titles as Values and Lifestyles in Western Europe and The Emergent Paradigm, Changing Patterns of Thought and Belief. From the standpoint of those who wish to promote the values of the New Age, as those affiliated with this project admittedly do, this particular strategy constitutes sheer genius. Literally, they get two for the price of one. They gain the advertising revenues for their budget, which in turn may be used for ongoing and future New Age projects. This money is doubly attractive to them because it is tax-free. Since they are structured as a foundation, they do not have the taxes the normal advertising consultants would have to pay. This undoubtedly gives them a substantial edge over their less fortunate commercial competitors. In such a highly favoured situation, they not only get a free crack at the public, they are paid to do so. And in orienting the advertising to the inner directeds, i.e. New Agers, they have admirably succeeded at cultural integration. Not coincidentally, those connected with this project are close personal friends of David Spangler. At least one of the project members, Paul Hawken, is a former Findihorn resident. He and other project members wrote the Bantam New Age series book, 7 Possible Tomorrows. William Harmon, the policy director of SRI International, lectures with Spangler. Many people have phoned and written me to say maybe they might seem paranoid, but they thought they were seeing New Age themes on television commercials. I could assure them that they were not. They did see them. The New Agers know that they are there, and they are justifiably proud of them. It was a substantial fait accompli. Harmon's influence in the New Age movement is virtually unlimited. It has ranged from superintending the Kettering Foundation-financed Changing Images of Man study to serving as president of the astronaut Edgar Mitchell Foundation Institute of Noetic Sciences. That report was heavily relied upon by New Age activist Marilyn Ferguson in the Aquarian Conspiracy. Harmon also substantially influenced the notorious and disturbing Global 2000 report to President Carter. Harmon is also a part of Planetary Citizens / Planetary Initiative, as well as one of its convening organisations, the limited membership United States Association for the Club of Rome. So I used to have a mate, his band was called Global 2000. He was well into this stuff. Voluntary simplicity, who and why. Another aspect to the plan is the introduction on a mass scale of what the New Agers call voluntary simplicity. A Christianity Today reporter told me I had to be wrong about an allegedly Christian writer I named for using obvious New Age references materials in his work. That reporter said of that person that he was obviously a dedicated Christian because he and his family lived on less than $8,000 a year. I told the reporter that might impress me, had all the other evidences not been present and I were not aware of the New Age emphasis on voluntary simplicity. As such, this was perfectly consistent with other evidences of his activism in the movement. Why is there such a cult interest in voluntary simplicity? The reasons are many. Mainly it is that occultists believe that absence of material objects makes one more open to influences of the spirit. Alice Bailey wrote widely about the practice. The general public is not as likely to be directly exposed to Alice Bailey books, but they are being indirectly exposed to the same concepts via the direct participation of Dwayne Elgin in these advertising campaign projects. In his Bantam New Age paperback Voluntary Simplicity and the advertisements he inspires for the SRI corporate clientele, therefore we shall consider Elgin's definition of what he terms voluntary simplicity. Dwayne Elgin is not just another hippie. He holds a Master of Business Administration degree from the Wharton Business School, as well as a Master of Arts degree in Economic History from the University of Pennsylvania. He worked for 6 years at the Stanford Research Institute in California before writing Voluntary Simplicity. Elgins makes his New Age movement biases clear. He highly recommends Ram Dass's Be Here Now, which sells for $6.66. As well as Marilyn Ferguson's The Aquarian Conspiracy and John Lobel's The Little Green Book, Shambhala Press. Lobel has spoken at Lucis Trust. His book is an interesting mixture of home improvement and Hinduism. Other Hindu/New Age references include those of Sri Aurobindo, The World of Zen by Nancy Ross, New Age Journal, Co-Evolution Quarterly, The Futurist from the World Future Society, Mark Satin's Renewal Newsletter, and Marilyn Ferguson's Leading Edge Bulletin. In Ram Dass's introduction to Elgin's book, he says, quote, "What kind of person might assist in the delicate midwifery of revealing to us the nature of the worldly expressions of an integration of inner and outer, east and west? Certainly one would be required to have a foot in both the eastern and western perspectives," close quotes. Ram Dass also says that it would take people such as E. F. Schumacher. He then goes on to equate Elgin with another now deceased New Age movement thought leader, E. F. Schumacher. Elgin's final picture, computerized simplicity. In The Hidden Dangers of the Rainbow, I wrote, quote, "While they promote simple lifestyles, at the same time, they call for the interconnection of the entire world by incredibly sophisticated computers with snooping capacities that are Orwellian in scope." And this is written in 1985. Elgin speaks of this very much, as does Marilyn Ferguson. Both freely write of the computerized networking process that characterizes the New Age movement, and their hope that this will be the ultimate vehicle for the occultization of society. Now this is getting interesting. Quote, sorry. Overall, these social change movements tend to be structured so that the larger network is composed of many small, voluntarily linked groups, each with its own leadership, and all woven together into a network of direct and indirect linkages through the unifying power of shared assumptions. This mode of social organisation seems to offer a number of advantages in coping with the problems of social complexity in the context of a faltering political complexity. As the problems of the traditional political economy worsen, And as the needs for a higher order of social integration and differentiation mount, new forms of social organisation will continue to emerge to pioneer change. Networks of the kind described above seem ideally suited to such pioneering, insomuch as they allow people to engage in self-organising processes to initiate and guide social change towards higher level of unity and diversity, integration and differentiation. These people networks will be greatly assisted in their work by microelectronics and computer revolution that is already diffusing potent new technologies throughout Western industrial countries. At a global level, these networks will be a potent tool for mobilising grassroots public opinion around critical issues of concern to the entire human family, and for promoting global social cohesion through overlapping networks of association that transcend nation-state boundaries. Furthermore, these global networks will begin to nurture a sense of species identity or global social character. This is all happening now. The emerging communications technologies, coupled with the network form of social organisation, offer the potential of allowing us to develop a level of social involvement and social cohesion, from local to global scale, far beyond what was imaginable even a few decades earlier. In summary, there already exist, or are fast emerging, both the tools of communication and the forms of social organisation necessary to sustain a revitalising civilization. And she's quoting all that from Voluntary Simplicity by Duane Elgin. She continues, a far more succinct Marilyn Ferguson expressed the same concepts Elgin struggled with this way, quote, global communications have encircled our world beyond any possibility of retreat. Now the whole planet is alive with instantaneous links, networks of people poised for communication and cooperation. That's from the Aquarian Conspiracy. She continues. The Club of Rome also issued a special report on microcomputers, making it clear that they will play a role in the transformation process. Microelectronics and Society, a report to the Club of Rome, 1982. To those familiar with the 13th chapter of Revelation and the 12th chapter of Daniel, the above observation should come as little surprise. It's noted that most of these declarations come from those unafraid to promote what the Bible calls sorcery. They almost universally promote animism and pantheism as environmental saving measures. Therefore, it's a reasonable conclusion that we could indeed well be in the closing days of history. Instead of panic, we must speak the truth to those involved and then, quote, lift up our heads for our redemption draweth nigh. Luke 20:21-28, King James. 7 possible tomorrows. A glimpse of the messianic expectations of SRI comes through 7 possible tomorrows. This book, also a part of the Bantam New Age series, is a result of the collaboration of several influential SRI staff members and scenarios. Apocalyptic Transformation is a familiar one to those familiar with the prophecies of the Antichrist coming in peacefully with the aid of a few. Daniel 11:21. It features a rancher from Wyoming who gives religious talks, Essend, coming forth reluctantly to save the world after a limited nuclear exchange. He then retires back to his Wyoming ranch once he has restored human sanity. Given human nature, it is unlikely that Essend or indeed anyone else would surrender such power. But people such as the authors of this book, who believe such a scenario, could readily accept such a messianic figure. They might naively and willingly surrender to him the authority the Bible clearly prophesies the beast of Revelation will have. This is still another hidden danger of the New Age rainbow. A plan to combat anticipated opposition to this plan. New Age theorists and activists have expected opposition. H. G. Wells was an early popularizer of their ideas. His The Open Conspiracy, Blueprints for a World Revolution is highly regarded among New Age insiders. I first learned of it by reading many quotes from it in Marilyn Ferguson's The Aquarian Conspiracy. Wells warned that there would be opposition and that they should be prepared to die for the cause. Quote, she's quoting H.G. Wells here. Yeah. This is from The Open Conspiracy by H.G. Wells. While the open conspiracy is no more than a discussion, it may spread unopposed because it is disregarded. As a mainly passive resistance to militarism, it may still be tolerable, but as its knowledge and experience accumulate and its organisation becomes more effective and aggressive, as it begins to lay hands upon education, upon social habits, upon business developments, as it proceeds to take over the organisation of the community, it will marshal not only its own forces, but its enemies. In ways quite unpredictable, it may raise a storm against itself beyond all our present imaginings. Our conception of a bloodless domination of the Atlantic communities may be merely the confident dream of a thinker whose thoughts have yet to be squarely challenged. It is no part of the modern religion to incur needless hardship or go out of the way to seek martyrdom. If we can do our work easily and happily, so it should be done. But the work is not to be shirked, because it cannot be done easily and happily. The vision of a world at peace and liberated for unending growth of knowledge and power is worth every danger of the way. And since in this age of confusion we must live imperfectly and anyhow die, we may as well suffer if need be, and die for a great end as for none. It's like people are willing to die to get this kind of agenda shoved through, you know, like real fanatics. Never has the translation of vision into realities been easy since the beginning of human effort. The establishment of the world community will surely exact a price, and who can tell what that price may be in toil, suffering, and blood. And that's written by H.G. Wells in 1928. The Open Conspiracy, Blueprints for a World Revolution. This is the kind of stuff that Alan Watt used to quote. Propaganda efforts. She continues. Alice Bailey noted that the wisdom teachings were to be openly propagandized by radio and other media, starting in 1975. Whether or not Marilyn Ferguson was familiar with her writings is probably unknown to anybody but herself and God. Certainly she is close to people such as Donald Keyes, a former administrator of the Arcane School of Lucis Trust, who are. However, Ferguson did start publicising the New Age movement about that time. Like Alice Bailey, she also speaks of the propagandizing of these beliefs. She also seeks the replacement of old belief structures with new ones. Then she quotes Marilyn Ferguson. The Aquarian Conspiracy is using its widespread outposts of influence to focus on the dangerous myths and mystiques of the old paradigm, i.e. religious orthodoxy, to attack obsolete ideas and practices. Human catalysts like the Aquarian conspirators describe the new options in classrooms, on TV, in print, in film, in art, in song, in scientific journals, on the lecture circuit, during coffee breaks, in government documents, at parties, and in new organisational policies and legislation. Constance Cumbey continues. The new international information order. There are more formal and global other efforts afoot to publish these new options. The United Nations is one notable vehicle being used for this. Its 32-agency bureaucracy is headed by Lucis Trust activist Robert Mueller. He is the Assistant Secretary General of the United Nations. He has been one of those instrumental in an attempt to control press freedom worldwide. Undoubtedly, Lucis Trust which has called for such measures for years, control of the press. So my startup disk's nearly full. I've got to delete some of these videos. Which has called for such measures for years, the Lucis Trust has, in its turn, been influential upon Mueller. These measures have been effectively propagandized in the Christian world as well. Evangelical figures such as Tom Sine popularized this measure, horrendous even to some New Agers within the Christian world. Sine told a Vancouver audience it was their Christian duty to support the NIIO, New International Information Order. Under the terms of the NIIO, journalists operating across national boundaries would require UNESCO licensing. The license could be lost for violating any number of conditions, including printing embarrassing information about the host country. Not untrue, just embarrassing. Interesting, that. Even if the terms of the presently proposed NIIO were benevolent, which they are not, it would set a dangerous precedent in terms of ceding control of press freedom. It would give international control of this vital freedom to an agency openly influenced by Alice Bailey teachings! Exclamation mark. Donald Keyes has unlimited access to UN leaders. He frequently writes speeches for its ambassadors. He was formerly employed by Lucis Trust and is still active there. Robert Mueller is consistently active in Lucis Trust and other New Age organisations. The Bailey teachings are clearly anti-Catholic, anti-Protestant, fundamentalist, and rabidly anti-Semitic. It is frightening to think that open advocates of such teachings would be in a position to regulate such vital freedoms as those of the press. At any rate, it is clear that there has been much working out of the plan, consciously or unconsciously. It appears that much more of it is conscious that Christian cult experts wish to concede. Donald Keyes makes it clear that the Bailey teachings have been influential to the entire New World Order scene. As the former representative of the World Federalists to the United Nations, as a former president of the International Centre for Integrative Studies, as a co-founder of Planetary Citizens, and as an organiser of the anti-nuclear pro-disarmament organisation SANE, he should know. He says, quote, "Of course, that information source was closed in 1947 with the death of Alice Bailey. But the work of that group of inspiring sources did not close. Their representatives are experimenting with types of activities and formats in which to affect our affairs." That was from an interview with Donald Keyes in Magical Blend magazine number 5 from 1982. She says here, quite interesting, because I remember this magazine, Magical Blend. It was like one of them, like Kindred Spirit, one of them type things. She says here in her reference, Magical Blend itself is a special project of the Silver Mind Control Organisation. The Magical Blend staff member doing the interview himself showed complete familiarity with the Bailey writings. Not much of a surprise, but it's interesting, that Silver Mind Control thing, which I've not actually read up on. I'm going to get one of them books to see what that is. The Silver Mind Control Method. Nearly finished. Yes, their work does continue and will until the culmination of Armageddon. Sorry, this is her writing again. Constance Cumbey. Yes, the work does continue and will until the culmination of Armageddon, but it will ultimately fail. The group of inspiring sources, deceiving keys and the balance of the New Ages are nothing more nor less than seducing spirits. And they are teaching the doctrines of devils, of which Paul so eloquently warned Timothy. May we pray, as Jesus urged Peter to do, that we not be tempted by such schemes. Let us not, as Donald Keyes, David Spangler and others have, fall prey to the plan. The tragedy is not that there is a plan for world domination. What they fail to recognise is that the plan is for capture instead of their souls. I've heard from people formerly close to Donald Keyes, David Spangler and other New Age leaders. They tell me first that I don't even know the half of it. Secondly, they tell me they are praying for their friends still in the movement. They have obeyed the command to come out of her, my people. Can we do less? ? And that's the end of chapter 4, working out the plan.